In the world of anime, there are hundreds of eyes that can destroy concepts, shape reality, and even bend fate itself. These powers sit at the very pinnacle of their respective universes. So today we're ranking the top 25 most broken specialized in anime based on 3 specific criteria: raw physical power, the abilities they possess, and the toll the power takes on the user's body. Okay, so first on the list is Shota Aizawa's Erasure. In My Hero Academia, this lets him turn off a target's quirk factor just by looking at them. In a world where almost everyone relies heavily on their superpowers for basic combat, turning them off is a literal instant win condition. He even wears specialized slotted goggles to hide his line of sight, meaning multiple enemies have no idea whose powers are currently being erased. But as with any overpowered technique, there's also a catch. The effects wears off the second he blinks. It's kind of like trying to win a staring contest while someone throws sand in your eyes, but he still pushes through this limit to the extreme. Even after getting his face completely smashed into solid concrete by a massive multi-city block level Nomu and literally having his own leg crushed, Aizawa still forces his eyes to stay open. That is what I call true determination. Now, while turning off powers is a great defensive baseline, shifting from defensive nullification to absolute combat precognition brings us to King Bradley's ultimate eye in Fullmetal Alchemist. If there's even a non-0% chance of him winning an engagement, the eye shows him exactly how to execute it by highlighting structural weaknesses and flaws. He doesn't need to overpower you magically, he just needs to outcalculate you. We see exactly how crazy this is when he casually weaves through gunfire at point-blank range. He doesn't just dodge. He takes a standard steel sword and effortlessly slices the steel threads off a massive brig's tank, and then cuts a fired artillery shell in half mid-air. Technically this is cheating since his body does give him superhuman speed, but the eye itself also calculates the exact trajectory needed, which is what makes it so special. Shifting from calculating sword swings to pure information gathering, we have Viola's Glare Glare Fruit from One Piece. If we're being honest, this is the ultimate surveillance tool. She can literally look directly into your mind to read your deepest thoughts and memories. She used it on Sanji during the Dressrosa arc, just to violently recoil because his mind was so chaotic, just a swirling mess of perverted thoughts. Now, beyond mind reading, it also grants insane clairvoyance. It's kind of like having a built-in satellite feed that can scan everything in a massive radius. She can even offensively turn her own tears into high-velocity projectiles, which is just peak anime nonsense. With that said, reading your deepest thoughts is great, but the Byakugan takes it to another level. In the Naruto universe, this eye provides a near 360-degree surveillance, save for a tiny spot at the back of your neck. It also grants the ability to track the intricate chakra pathway systems of the opponent from over several kilometers away. It completely shuts down surprise attacks and lets the user target vital chakra nodes that shuts down an enemy's internal organs with surgical precision. Now, knowing where an attack is coming from doesn't matter much if you can't react to it, which brings us to the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. This eye takes visual processing and weaponizes it into kinetic vision, allowing the user to read chakra flow, perfectly copy complex jutsu, and even cast mind-breaking illusions. The emotional cost is heavy, requiring extreme trauma to awaken. If you evolve it into the Mangekyo Sharingan through even more trauma, it unlocks random, ridiculously overpowered abilities like setting unquenchable black flames or teleporting matter into another dimension, along with a massive ethereal armor called Susanoo. The toll it takes on the body is incredibly steep though. Overusing the Mangekyo causes extreme pain, forces your eyes to bleed heavily, and eventually makes you go completely blind. So while the eye can be overpowered, it's also a bit random. You could be the next Itachi or Obito, or it could be random ninja 017 who doesn't get an overpowered ability, and you end up going blind a few weeks after awakening the Mangekyo, so it's really a gamble with this one. Now, knowing where an attack is coming from is one thing, but what if you just needed to know someone's true name to instantly end them? The Shinigami Eyes from Death Note lets you see the name and remaining lifespan of anyone you look at. In a setting where writing a name dictates life and death, this is absolute power. But the cost to the body is a bit crazy. To get these eyes, you have to make a deal with the god of death that permanently cuts your remaining lifespan exactly in half. You are literally paying for this power with decades of your own life. Amane did this multiple times, surviving only because Shinigami like Galus and Rem sacrificed themselves to unnaturally extend her life. So you do have the power to end anyone, but it comes at an extreme cost. Moving on from Evil Eyes and to something similar to the Sharingan, we have Kurapika's Eyes from HunterXHunter. When his eyes glow scarlet due to intense emotional agitation, his Nen category fundamentally shifts from conjuration to specialization. This gives him access to Emperor Time, an ability that lets him use all 6 Nen categories at 100% efficiency of his current training level. For context, normal fighters max out at 60 or 80% in those categories outside their natural affinity. This spike in aura and efficiency lets him do things like speed blitz elite phantom troop members like Uvojin, but the trade-off is easily one of the most brutal in all of anime. Kurapika placed a massive vow and limitation on himself. For every single second Emperor Time is active, his mortal lifespan is reduced by exactly 1 hour. Do the math on that. 1 hour of combat cost him 150 days of his life. It's basically trading away your retirement years just to win a fistfight today. He even has to keep it active when loaning stolen abilities to his allies through Stealth Dolphin, constantly reducing his lifespan in the background. So the ability is really overpowered, but the drawback is also just as great. Speaking of insane costs, let's talk about forcefully taking a magical golden eyeball. Maximilian Pegasus, which by the way is just an awesome name, uses the Millennium Eye in Yu-Gi-Oh! To effortlessly read the minds of his opponents. It's kind of like playing poker with a guy who can see your cards, your strategies, and even your brainwaves all at the same time. But it goes way beyond just cheating at children's card games. If you make the mistake of losing a shadow game to him, the eye physically extracts your soul and traps it inside a card or an inanimate object. He used this terrifying artifact to rip out the souls of Seto Kaiba, Mokuba, and Yugi's own grandpa just to force Yugi into a tournament. I know, it's crazy. Having said that, losing your soul is bad, but surgically implanting a third eye into your forehead just so you don't burn to death is a whole different level. In YuYu Hakusho, Haie undergoes agonizing surgery by the demon Shigure to get the Jagan Eye. It gives him telepathy, mind control over weaker demons, and telekinesis, but its real purpose is to act as a biological stabilizer. It bridges his nature as a fire demon and allows him to summon and control the dragon of the darkest flame, a demonic fire technique from the darkest depths of the demon world that would otherwise incinerate his own body into ash. He can even transform into his Jaganshi form, growing smaller evil eyes all over his body to massively boost his combat power and precision. So as you can see, it does have some pros, but it also has some cons, as per usual. Now if implanting one demonic eye wasn't enough, Mukuro Rokudo's right eye channels the literal 6 paths of Hades in Hitman Reborn. He attained these powers after dying over and over again during childhood experiments conducted by Estraneo Famiglia. Depending on which path he activates, the kanji in his eye changes, giving him wild abilities. He can summon poisonous snakes and wild dogs, cast hyper-realistic illusions that melt the brain, or outright possess people's bodies like he did to Dokuro. For context, in episode 26 when he fights Suna, Mukuro activates the first path, the Path of Hell. He doesn't just make Suna hallucinate pillars of fire. The illusions become so dense enough to inflict actual physical damage on the environment. If his eyes convinces reality that you are burning, your body physically takes damage. But the wildest part is the path of humans. To access this massive speed and battle aura boost, Mokuro actually has to stab himself directly in the eye. So pretty much it's just another day in the world of anime. Sliding into the next spot is Leonardo Watch from Blockade Battlefront, who wields the all-seeing eyes of the gods. Operating in Hell Salem's lot, a city where dimensional boundaries have totally collapsed, he serves as the ultimate sensory apparatus. He was once an ordinary, humble photographer until an unknown ancient entity forced these eyes onto him at the direct cost of his sister's eyesight. These eyes can see through any tier of mystical illusion, track microscopic, invisible auras, and hijack the optic nerves of others to make them see what he sees, or induce extreme vertigo. Most importantly, at least when it comes to the context of this universe, they can read the true names of the elder blood breeds, mega powerful, basically immortal vampires from the abyss. Knowing their exact cosmic names is the only way Team Libra can permanently seal them away. But channeling the vision of elder gods destroys a frail human body. When Leo pushes his eyes to read those cosmic names or processes too much multi-dimensional information, his eyeballs physically crack and bleed under the strain, causing immense physical trauma. Moving from channeling the powers of Hades to stealing powers directly, Yu Otosaka's Plunder ability from Scarlet is absolutely terrifying. Originally, he thought his power was just possessing someone's body for 5 seconds, but the truth is that when he possesses someone, he permanently steals their superpower. This guy ended up traveling the entire globe and stealing tens of thousands of abilities, doing crazy stuff like freezing things, flying and blocking rockets with force fields. Having said that, the human brain isn't built to hold a massive server of supernatural powers. The biological strain was completely destroying his mind and erased his memories, leaving him as a blank slate amnesiac known globally as the One-Eyed Grim Reaper. Now, stealing bodies and amassing power is awesome, but reverse engineering magical formulas to replicate any power you want is arguably better. That of course brings us to Alpha Stigma from the Legend of Legendary Heroes. This guy named Reiner possesses this cursed ocular mutation which lets him analyze and perfectly replicate any form of magic he sees, even if the magic spell is partially completed. It's kind of like playing a fighting game and executing your opponent's ultimate move right back at them, but with twice the damage. He doesn't just copy it, he empowers it, casually overpowering dozens of military mages simultaneously, using the exact same spells they're actively casting at him. Bearers of the Alpha Stigma almost always go completely berserk, losing their sanity permanently and destroying themselves. Reiner is the sole anomaly who can regain his sanity thanks to a dark ritual his father performed that implanted the lonely demon essence into him. When he loses control and the dark god takes over, his eyes just outright dematerializes anything he looks at, earning him the terrifying title, Solver of All Formulas. With that said, what if your eyes just handed you the cheat codes to the universe? The Answer Talker ability from Zatch Bell grants the user the psychic capacity to instantly know the solution to any given problem. If the enemy throws an unblockable attack at Kaio, his eyes just automatically feed him the exact sequence of steps, spells, or even movements needed to dodge it and counteract it flawlessly. It's kind of like having a frame-perfect walkthrough guide downloaded straight into your brain. Though it is incredibly draining on the human brain, obviously, requiring Kaio to use it in short, tactical bursts to avoid completely frying his own nervous system during final battles. So it's not something the user can spam, which is great, but it does come in clutch when needed. Now, while Alpha Stigma copies magic you can see in the moment, the Eye of Aeon from 11 Eyes copies things from thousands of years ago. Forged from the Zoroaster from a fragment of the Emerald Tablet, this golden eye operates on the magical attribute of the Aether and gives Satsuki absolute movement prediction. But its real power is that it acts as a massive hard drive that absorbs the soul of its previous users when they die. This means that Satsuki can tap into the repository of thousands of historical fighters, instantly downloading their combat skills to do things like execute advanced flying spells and combine elemental attacks. The best part, which is kind of overpowered, is that it allows him to shift through infinite futures and forcefully select the one desired timeline where he actually wins. Now, this would be a bit higher on the list, but it has a crazy drawback. The Eye of Aeon doesn't just store data, it stores the actual souls and personalities of all those past users. The more Satsuki relies on its power to survive, the more its own soul gets overwritten by the previous owners. So while it's very useful, it does come at a great cost. Next on the list is Nanami Yasuri, who possesses the Eyes of God. If she sees a martial arts technique once, she learns it. If she sees it twice, she completely masters it and improves upon it. She doesn't just copy standard martial arts. She can copy techniques like superhuman physical durability or extreme muscle manipulation and instantly make them her own. In a sense, it is superior to that of the Sharingan, since while you still need to train your body to match the proficiency of the move you copied, Nanami doesn't. She also copies your physical prowess as well, and even makes it twice as powerful. Her father was so terrified of her mutant potential that he refused to train her, hoping that she would just go away. The crazy part is that her body is very frail and riddled with illness, constantly teetering on the brink of death. Yet her eyes force her nervous system to keep surviving, adapting, and fighting back, which is what makes it amazing. Now transitioning to something a bit more divine, Adam from Record of Ragnarok possesses the Eyes of the Lord. Because he was created in the image of God, his eyes grant him divine replication, allowing him to evade and emulate any technique used by a divine being. It's kind of like watching a pro gamer hit a frame-perfect parry, but your body just automatically does it for you every single time. During his epic fight with Zeus himself, Adam perceived, dodged, and countered the time-transcending fist. For context, this punch was launched in less than 0.0000000000001 seconds, basically infinite speed where time itself stops. Though the cost on the body is a bit insane, pushing his eyes to auto-dodge millions of sub-instantaneous strikes caused his nervous system to undergo unimaginable stress, leading to massive brain damage and permanent blindness. Sliding into the next spot is Fujino's Mystic Eyes of Distortion. While of course copying a god is very impressive, bending physical space without touching it is a whole different ballgame. In the Type Moon universe, it lets her view the world as if it were a flat 2D picture. If she focuses on an object, she can physically grab that 2D canvas in her mind and just twist it. It completely ignores physical durability. She once used this power to easily twist and collapse a massive structural bridge like it was a piece of paper, and because she lacks a normal sense of pain, she pushes her body way past its limits, eventually causing her eyesight to severely degrade over time. Speaking of system overload, let's talk about Satoru Gojo. Gojo is the first person in over 400 years to inherit both the Six Eyes and the Limitless technique in Jujutsu Kaisen. His eyes act like a high-definition infrared camera that lets him distinctly identify energy signatures and non-cursed objects from several kilometers away. But more importantly, the Six Eyes allow for atomic-level precision and manipulation of cursed energy. Because his brain processes this energy so efficiently, the amount of cursed energy lost when activating a technique per se drops to infinitesimally close to zero. He's able to expand his domain expansion multiple times in one day, when everyone else can barely do it once. Though to stop his brain from frying from the constant sensory input, he has to wear a blindfold. He also has to refresh his brain over and over again just to stay sane, which I think is a pretty good trade-off. Now next up we step into the cosmic scale with the Tenseigan from Naruto. Tonerio Tsutsuki awakened this legendary dojutsu, and its raw output is amazing. It was used as the power source to move the entire moon out of its orbit and slowly hurl it towards the planet to wipe out humanity. It also somehow powered a massive artificial sun and gave Toneri a chakra mode that lets him clash directly with Naruto's Ninetales chakra mode. It also seemingly has creation powers, such as manifesting objects from chakra and even creating truth-seeking orbs that have the power to negate abilities and disintegrate what it touches. Though I would say that it does have a massive flaw, which is that Naruto was able to punch it out of existence. Yeah, Naruto punched Teneri so hard that the Tenseigan just evaporated, apparently. So it's not that reliable. With that said, we do have the Rinnegan. This eye grants access to the 6 paths abilities, giving the user dominion over gravity, soul extraction, mechanization, absorption, summoning, and even control over life and death itself. Yeah, I mean that literally. It also has some unique powers like Madara's Rinnegan, which awakened Limbo, a technique where he projects corporeal shadows into an invisible dimension. These shadows can physically beat you up, but you can't see them without the Rinnegan, and you can't sense them or touch them unless you have 6 paths in Jutsu. Then you have Sasuke's Amenegetic Aura, which lets him instantaneously swap positions with any person or object within a specific range. But of course, overusing the power causes the Tomo in his eyes to vanish temporarily, preventing him from using his powers until it recharges. So the eye itself doesn't really have a massive drawback like dying or losing your soul, it just needs to recharge. Now technically this is kinda cheating, but what if you didn't need to throw a moon or a black hole at someone to kill them? What if you could just cut the concept of their existence? In the Type Moon universe, which seems very, common here, the mystic eyes of death perception are divine spiritual class mutations that lets the user see the predetermined death of a target as intersecting lines and points. If you then trace a sharp object along these lines, you bypass physical durability entirely and actualize their death. Shiki is the absolute peak of this, because her brain is connected directly to the root. She isn't limited to killing physical bodies. She can kill diseases, telekinetic forces, bounded fields, and spirits. And this one is going to sound crazy, but in her craziest feat, she literally killed a mathematical predicted future by treating it as a conceptual target and cutting its lines. Yeah, that is something that happened. Though I will say that while destroying concepts is wild and crazy, this next one goes far beyond that. Ada from the Boruto manga possesses the Senrigan, a dojutsu that lets her project her consciousness to see and hear anything from the present or in the past, tracking all the way back to the moment she was born. On top of that, it passively charms almost everyone she meets, making them fall in love with her and unable to attack her, unless they belong to the race of the Otsutsuki. But its real power is omnipotence. She used this god tier power to literally rewrite the memories of the entire planet, completely swapping the lives of Boruto and Kawaki and framing Boruto as the villain who killed the Hokage. This omnipotence is stated to have the power to make anything real and even create worlds. In fact, it's also stated that omnipotence was used to create the current world, including everything within it, which I would assume would include life itself. Now, Ada hasn't shown the ability to do any of this since she isn't an Otsutsuki, so she can't control it. It only works randomly based on her deepest desires, which is a significant nerf. I will say that if we were to remove the requirement needed to use the power itself, it might even top the next one on this list, that of course being the Almighty. In Bleach, Yuhaba's ultimate power, the Almighty, is exactly that. At first, it grants him the ability to see every possible future across an infinite branch. He can even watch conversations happening in different dimensions even when he isn't there. But after absorbing the Soul King, he can actively alter the future he sees. He can literally foresee a timeline where he dies and use his powers in the future to rewrite the present, rendering himself virtually immortal. It is the ultimate trump card. His only major blind spot is the concept of stillness, which is why the Still Silver Arrow managed to bypass his vision and momentarily strip his powers. There's also the fact that the Almighty cannot dispel illusions if they're placed on Yuhaba before he activates the ability. Sasuke Aizen used this Suigetsu to manipulate Yuhaba's perception prior to the Almighty being fully active, causing him to see false futures and leaving him vulnerable to a physical attack. So there is another way, but you have to use it before he uses Almighty, and it has to be able to actually affect him. It's a tall task, but very doable. Now, seeing an altar in the future doesn't really matter if the guy you're fighting can just look at the concept of logic and hit the delete button. That is why at the absolute top of the food chain is Anos from the Misfits of Demon King Academy. His original unsuppressed eyes are the magical eyes of chaotic destruction, putting his attack potency at low complex multiversal. The fundamental mechanic here is retroactive nullification. If an attack, or let's say a law of physics, clashes with his eyes, he destroys the reason or logic behind it. Because he is the essence of chaos and a contradiction is chaotic, he simply wins the exchange. And I'm not even kidding, this applies to everything. He used it to destroy even predetermined fates. The mere attempt to open these eyes causes the world to enter a collapsing state, and if he ever were to open them fully, the entire world would be instantly destroyed. That is how broken this dude is, for some reason. So you can see why he's at number 1. They're really just doing any random stuff in anime at this point in time. With that said, those are the top 25 most powerful eyes in anime. Let me know your thoughts on the ranking in the comments. And also remember to like the video and subscribe if you're new. Also consider checking out my video on the broken heroes and why we love them. You might enjoy it.